This is Christina Kettlewell, or the 8-Day Bride. In 1947, Christina was 22 years old, living in Mimico, when on May 12th, she eloped with Jack Kettlewell, a war veteran. The two had known each other for 3 years at this point and had gotten engaged about 4 to 5 weeks prior to their elopement. But Christina's family was not too thrilled about their marriage, mainly because of Jack's best friend, 28-year-old professional ballroom dancer Ronald Berry. Christina, Jack, and Ronald were basically weirdly inseparable. And Christina's family believed that either Ronald was madly in love with Christina or that the three of them were in a relationship. On May 17th, the couple jumped in the car and loaded up to go on their honeymoon at this romantic, remote cottage in Severn Falls. Now, this cottage was owned by Ronald, and he had offered them this little getaway as his wedding gift to them. But instead of the couple having this romantic getaway to themselves, Ronald went with them. Despite the fact that Ronald was on their honeymoon with them, everything was going completely fine at first. But then after just a few hours of being there, Christina started acting a little weird. She would go into these random crying fits and be zoned out into a daze. Ronald later said that these episodes were fueled by conversations he was having with Christina, where she was feeling insecure about whether Jack truly loved her or not. And according to Ronald and Jack, Christina's behavior only got more and more erratic as the trip went on. On the morning of May 20th, Ronald woke up before the newlyweds, and he decided that he was going to go outside and sunbathe until they got up. He returned to the cottage at around 11 a.m. only to find that it was on fire. Ronald has changed his story many times as to what exactly went down when he entered the home, but it mainly concerns whether or not Christina was in the home at this time or not. In one of the versions of his story, he said that he had entered the cottage to find that it was on fire and found Christina standing in the living room with tears in her eyes and a blank stare. But in all versions of this story, Jack was on the couch in the living room with a very apparent head injury and seemed to be semi-unconscious. Ronald said he then picked up Jack and rushed him out of the home before returning to get some other belongings and/or Christina. And it was at this point that he claimed that Christina was nowhere to be found. So once he got out of the house, he called for help and then jumped on the boat with Jack to rush him to the hospital. First responders rushed to the cottage, but within an hour, it was completely burned to the ground. Some police were sent to the hospital to talk with Ronald and Jack, while others were sent to the cottage in order to search for Christina. After canvassing the area for a few hours, they finally found Christina. She was just 150 feet away from the cottage in 9 inches of water, dead. This was very odd because there were no apparent injuries or burns anywhere on Christina's body, but an autopsy found many interesting things. Part 2 is on the playlist below.